I always imagined betrayal would come with fireworks, raised voices, a screaming match, something cinematic. But when Isidora told me she wanted a divorce, she said it so casually I thought she was talking about the weather. It was a Friday morning. The sky outside was washed in that gray-blue hue that always made me feel oddly serene. I was sipping my black coffee, flipping through some reports on my tablet, when she stepped into the kitchen in her silk robe, barely looking at me. "I want a divorce," she said, without eye contact. "I've met someone else." Just like that. I looked up slowly. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't catch. I didn't say a word at first. I just watched her, really watched her, as if I were seeing her for the first time. Her tone wasn't regretful. It was annoyed, as if I had somehow ruined her schedule by existing one day too long. I remember nodding. "Okay," I replied quietly. The silence that followed was deafening. She was expecting me to explode, maybe even beg. But I'd learned a long time ago that rage is loud and power is quiet. She blinked. "That's it." I stood, placing my cup in the sink. "You'll hear from my attorney by Monday." And then I walked past her, ignoring the way her lips twisted in confusion, frustration, fear. Inside, I was unraveling. But on the outside, I had already begun my first move. That weekend, I didn't drink. I didn't cry. I didn't even text anyone about what happened. Instead, I opened the private vault where I stored all our legal documents, contracts, prenup, and property titles. I pulled out a flash drive with a backup of our joint financial records and started analyzing her patterns. Something didn't sit right. Her spending had increased months before this announcement. Hotel charges, Uber rides in neighborhoods she didn't frequent, a subscription to a flower delivery service I never received. I took notes, every single detail. Then I called Mara Gold, my assistant. If anyone knew how to help me execute precision, it was her. She answered on the first ring. "Morning, Mr. Cross." "Cashen, please," I said. "I need you to contact Quentin Drake. Family law." There was a pause. "Is everything okay?" I chuckled. "Not yet, but it will be." Monday came fast. Isidora assumed I'd beg her to stay or fight over furniture. But instead, she received a formal notice from Quentin's office, requesting her full financial disclosures, as well as a notice that I was filing first. That seemed to shake her. I came home that night to find her fuming. "What is this? You're making it legal already. You made it personal." "I'm just following your lead," I said, removing my coat. Her eyes flared. "You said nothing when I told you." "Because I was already 10 steps ahead, I replied. It wasn't about the divorce. It was about control. And I was reclaiming mine, one paper at a time. Quentin Drake was a calm, meticulous man with salt and pepper hair and eyes like steel. The kind of lawyer who didn't ask, "Are you ready?" He made you ready. By Wednesday, he'd filed motions freezing all joint accounts pending investigation of unusual activity. Isidora wasn't happy. She barged into my home office like a storm in heels. "You're really freezing my cards?" she spat. "There are cards," I replied. "But since you've moved on, I assumed you wouldn't mind being financially independent, too." Her mouth opened, then snapped shut. She wasn't used to me being cold. She was used to the quiet husband who went along with everything. The man who let her impulsive purchases slide. The one who trusted her blindly. Not anymore. Later that day, Marigold walked into my office with a neatly labeled folder. I pulled those hotel receipts. 3 months ago, she booked a suite under her maiden name. Guess who checked in an hour later under his real name? She handed me the evidence. Silas Mercer. I blinked. Silas was one of those guys who always looked like he belonged in a cologne ad. Tall, perfectly tousled hair, all charm and polished teeth. We met him at a charity event last year. Isidora introduced us with too much excitement. I should have noticed back then. I didn't. But now I had names, dates, receipts. Marigold watched me quietly. "You okay?" "I'm not here to be okay," I said. "I'm here to win." And just like that, the man she betrayed was no longer her husband. He was her reckoning. By the end of the week, the cracks in Isidora's perfectly curated life started to show. She showed up late to her boutique job, snapped at employees, and even posted a cryptic Instagram story about toxic men who play victim. Cute. She tried to paint herself as the empowered woman leaving a cold, unfeeling husband. But the truth had weight, and I was stacking it, one document at a time. Quentin advised me to keep a journal of everything. "If she escalates," he said, "we'll need a trail. Don't react emotionally. Just record and let her hang herself." So I did. I documented her sudden decision to move into a luxury apartment, one she couldn't afford without dipping into joint funds. I recorded the day she keyed my car and claimed it was an accident. I took photos of the broken glass on our patio door the night after she found out I was seeking full asset disclosure. That weekend, I invited Mara Gold and Quentin to my home. We sat at the long oak table in my study, surrounded by soft jazz and hard evidence. She's spiraling, Mara Gold said, flipping through the photos of property damage. She's not thinking rationally. Quentin nodded. That works in our favor. We'll file a restraining order if she touches anything else. It wasn't revenge for me. It was strategy. Every act of hers was a brick I was stacking, building the legal wall that would box her in. Isidora thought she was dealing with the same man who used to buy her roses after fights. She didn't realize that man was gone, and in his place stood someone far more dangerous. A man with nothing to lose and everything to gain. It's funny how silence unnerves people more than shouting ever could. Isidora expected a war of words, a mess of emotions she could twist and spin. But all I gave her was silence. Controlled, calculated, maddening silence. I think that's when she started to panic. The following Tuesday, I received an email from her, subject line, "We need to talk." 3 sentences long. "I don't understand why you're being so cold. I thought we could be adults about this. Call me." I didn't respond. That same night, my Ring camera captured her pacing outside my front door at 11:43 p.m., muttering to herself. I didn't answer. The footage went straight to the folder marked behavioral evidence. Wednesday morning, she called my office line 5 times in a row. Mara Gold silenced them all. "Should I block her?" she asked, sipping her tea. "No," I said, watching the missed calls pile up on my screen. "Let her build the case for us." Later that afternoon, Quentin called. "She submitted her first asset list," he said, sounding amused. "Conveniently forgot to include the Tesla you bought her and the borrowed down payment her lover wired her to secure that apartment." Oh, I leaned back in my chair. "So he's involved financially now, which means he can be subpoenaed," Quentin said. "You really want to go that far?" I paused. I want her to know she doesn't control the board anymore. Checkmate isn't personal. It's inevitable. There was a silence on the line, then a quiet chuckle from Quentin. "I underestimated you, Cash." "Everyone did," I said. "Even me." Later that evening, I poured myself a glass of scotch, sat on the balcony, and watched the city lights flicker below. Isidora had always been the storm in our marriage. Loud, passionate, unpredictable. But now I realized she was also the forest fire, and I had just learned how to control the wind. The next twist came from the most unexpected place. A week after Isidora's financial slip-up, Quentin called me. Not with legal updates this time, but with a visitor request. "Silas Mercer wants to speak with you." I nearly laughed. "Silas? The guy who helped blow up my marriage." "He's been in contact with her lawyers," Quentin said. "But from what I gather, there's tension. He asked to meet in person, says it's important." I took the meeting, not because I cared what Silas had to say, but because understanding your opponent's weaknesses is vital in chess. And I was playing to win. We met in a quiet lounge downtown. Silas showed up in a suit 2 sizes too flashy for a Thursday afternoon and with eyes that hadn't slept in days. He didn't start with pleasantries. "She told me you were cold, calculated, that you didn't care about her." I sipped my espresso. "And you believed her?" He looked down. "Not anymore." There was an awkward silence before he continued. "I didn't know the full story. I didn't even know she was still married. She said it was over, months ago." I shrugged. "She lies beautifully." He pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. "This is my share of the lottery win. She talked me into cashing it early and putting part of it toward that apartment. I'm giving it to you. I want out." I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "She's unstable. She trashed your property, screamed at my coworkers, broke a wine bottle on my car hood last night. I was a fool." I took the envelope without opening it. "She'll come after you for giving this to me," I said. He nodded. "Let her. I'm not covering for her anymore." As he stood to leave, I stopped him. "Silas," I said calmly, "you didn't just cheat with my wife. You inherited the chaos she brings. Enjoy the fallout." He left without another word. And just like that, the man who helped break my home had unknowingly funded my rebuild. After my meeting with Silas, the silence from Isidora didn't last long. That weekend, she exploded. It started with a flurry of unhinged text messages. Dozens, maybe more. Accusations, veiled threats, gaslighting attempts. Then came the voice notes, slurred, frantic. She begged, then cursed, then begged again. I didn't answer. Instead, I forwarded them all to Quentin. This is exactly what we needed, he said. She's officially unstable in writing and audio. By Sunday night, I returned home from the gym to find shattered flower pots on the front steps. My ring footage showed her pulling up at 2:14 a.m., barefoot, mascara streaked, screaming my name like a banshee into the darkness before pelting the pots at the door and speeding away. Police report. Footage. Photos. More evidence. On Monday, Quentin filed for an emergency restraining order. But the real kicker? Her apartment complex called me. Apparently, she had thrown a chair off the fourth-floor balcony during a fight with Silas before he finally packed his things and left. Security escorted her out. Lease revoked. Now homeless, without access to joint funds, and rejected by her lover. Isidora was spiraling. And I had never felt calmer. Your ex is circling the drain, Marigold said as we reviewed the files at the office. Are you sure you want to go all the way with this? I looked at her, steady. She wanted freedom, I replied. Now she gets to pay the price for how she took it. Marigold nodded, her voice soft. You're not the same man I used to work with. I hope not, I said. The old me let her light fires. The new me hands her the match, then steps away. The restraining order was granted within 48 hours. Isidora didn't show up to the hearing. Her lawyer did, alone, sweating, pale, and apologetic. Claimed she was in emotional distress and unable to attend. Quentin, ever the tactician, slid the printed screenshots and ring footage across the table. The judge barely glanced at it before nodding. Temporary order granted. Full hearing scheduled. Isidora barred from contacting me or coming within 100 feet of my home or office. The moment I stepped outside the courtroom, the autumn air felt different. Lighter, like the chaos had finally lost its grip on me. Marigold met me outside the courthouse. She called the front desk 4 times today, she said, handing me a coffee. Cried to the receptionist. Said she was misunderstood. Sounds about right. We sat on a nearby bench, letting the quiet fill the space between us. The first real peace I'd felt in weeks. Do you think she'll stop now? She asked gently. I looked straight ahead. No, but it doesn't matter anymore. She's not part of my future. She's just a name on paperwork. A week later, Silas wired over the rest of the money from the lottery win. More than enough to cover legal costs, property repairs, and some left over to seed the next chapter of my life. Quentin called it poetic. Marigold called it closure. I called it fuel. With the legal fire contained and Isidora pushed out of my life by court order, I didn't just feel like a man recovering. I felt like a man rising. She tried to scorch the earth beneath my feet. Instead, I built a fortress on it. The next move wasn't from me. It was from her. Just when I thought she was done, Isidora filed a counterclaim. Emotional neglect, abandonment, and financial oppression. The irony would have been laughable if it weren't so twisted. She's desperate, Quentin said, skimming the paperwork. There's no evidence to support any of this. She's trying to flip the narrative, I said. She wants pity now. Exactly. Which is why we'll bury this with facts. He began assembling the counter-strategy. Medical reports, therapist records, she never went, but I did. Dated receipts proving I supported her boutique, and financial transfers that tracked my support well after she left. But I had one more move. I called Marigold into my office and slid a flash drive across the table. What's this? She asked. My anniversary gift to her last year. Hidden camera footage from the hotel suite I decorated. She never showed up. That night, I got a message from her saying she was too overwhelmed to celebrate. Know where she was. Marigold nodded slowly. Silas. Exactly. The footage proves the timeline of the affair started before she filed, which means her entire emotional neglect claim falls apart. Marigold gave me a look I'll never forget. Part admiration, part disbelief. You've really thought of everything. Not everything, I said. Just everything she never expected. The hearing was brief. Her lawyer tried, but Quentin calmly dismantled every allegation. The judge's ruling was firm. There is no merit to these claims. Based on the evidence, the respondent demonstrated emotional maturity, financial transparency, and good faith. The petitioner, however, has shown patterns of instability and dishonesty. She lost everything she tried to weaponize. And when the gavel dropped, I didn't smile. I just exhaled. Not from relief. From freedom. After the court's decision, Isidora vanished, for a while. No emails. No calls. No Instagram posts. Radio silence. And then came the inevitable. A voicemail from an unknown number. I played it on speaker in my office while Marigold sorted files nearby. Cashen, I don't even know what to say anymore. I thought I wanted something else. I thought you were cold, but maybe I was just broken. You win, okay? You got everything. But just know I didn't mean for it to go this far. Click. Marigold raised an eyebrow. She sounds defeated. She sounds like someone who realizes the fire she started burned her own house down. I didn't reply. I archived the voicemail with the rest. It was never about revenge, not really. It was about making sure she didn't destroy me while trying to escape her own reflection. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt. I repainted the master bedroom, sold the car she keyed, and bought a simple hybrid instead. Traded our designer couch for something with history, a secondhand leather piece that smelled like pipe tobacco and comfort. I even donated most of the things she left behind. Designer heels, coats, perfume bottles half used. All gone. The house became mine in spirit, not just in name. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was breathing air that belonged to me. Then one morning, Marigold brought me a coffee and hesitated at the door. There's a charity gala next weekend. You're on the guest list. You going? I looked at her, really looked. She'd been the only constant in this storm. Professional, kind, sharp as a blade. Someone who saw the worst of it and stayed. Only if you're coming with me, I said. She blinked, then smiled. About time. The night of the gala arrived with all the glitter and pomp you'd expect. Velvet ropes, champagne towers, rented smiles. But for the first time, I wasn't walking into one of these events as someone's husband. I was walking in as myself. And I wasn't alone. Marigold stood beside me in a simple black dress, understated elegance. She wasn't the loudest woman in the room, but somehow, everyone noticed her. Everyone's staring, she whispered, amused. They're staring because they don't know if I upgraded my assistant or fell for her. She laughed, then added, why not both? Throughout the night, we danced between donors and executives. Small talk, handshakes, polite laughter. I felt 1,000 times lighter than I had in years. At one point, Silas showed up. He gave me a distant nod from across the room. I returned it. Nothing more needed to be said. Let him carry his own guilt. I had laid mine down long ago. Later, as the music slowed, I found myself and Marigold out on the balcony. The city hummed below us. Lights flickered like embers from stories that didn't belong to me anymore. I never asked, she said softly. What would you have done if she'd apologized sooner? I thought about that. If she'd apologized while she was still lying, nothing would have changed. And if she'd been honest the day she asked for a divorce, maybe I would have forgiven her. But I'm glad she didn't. Why? Because her chaos led me here. Marigold didn't say anything. She didn't have to. She reached for my hand. And in that quiet touch, I realized I'd been chasing peace for years, only to find it beside me the whole time. The days after the gala passed quietly. No drama, no subpoenas, no shattered glass or screaming voicemails. Just mornings that began with sunlight and ended with clarity. I met with Quentin one last time at his office. Not to discuss court strategy or the next legal counterstrike, but to finalize the settlement papers. Isidora had finally accepted the outcome. No alimony, no claim on the house, no portion of the assets. She walked away with a fraction of what she once tried to steal and a reputation in ashes. She agreed to everything? I asked, still half expecting a twist. Quentin nodded. Her lawyer practically begged us to put it behind us. She's burned too many bridges. Yours was just the last one. I signed the final page. It felt anticlimactic. But then again, that's what healing often is. Not an explosion, but an exhale. She'll try to reinvent herself, Quentin added. They always do. She can paint herself as a phoenix, I said, standing. But we both know she lit the match. Back at the office, I found Marigold reorganizing the project boards for our next quarter. She looked up, read my expression, and smiled. It's done, she asked. It's done. No confetti, no celebration, just quiet relief. That evening, I walked through my house. The home that once echoed with tension and whispered betrayal. It felt different now. Every room had been touched by change, reclaimed by truth. In the closet where her shoes once were, I placed a row of travel bags. In the drawer she used to lock her secrets, I stored old letters and unused keys. Not out of bitterness, out of closure. I wasn't just free from her. I was free from the version of myself that tolerated less than I deserved. Weeks passed, and with them came a sense of stability I hadn't felt in years. Not the fake kind, the one where you convince yourself that quiet means peace, but the real kind. The kind earned through fire. I'd started running again. Not from anything, but towards something. Each morning I laced up, hit the pavement, and felt my mind unclutter, mile by mile. Marigold had become more than an assistant. She was my sounding board, my calm in the storm. Some evenings we'd stay after hours, sharing drinks and stories that had nothing to do with courtrooms or broken vows. One night, we found ourselves sitting in my backyard beneath a sky smeared with stars. "I keep thinking about how all of this started," I said, staring upward. A single sentence over coffee. That's all it took to unravel everything. She was quiet a moment. "Sometimes we think betrayal begins when they cheat. But really, it starts when they stop being honest with who they are." I looked over. "And what about us?" Marigold met my eyes. "I think we've been honest all along." There it was, simple, unspoken truth. No grand confession. No desperate kiss. Just two people, finally safe enough to see each other without masks. Later, I walked her to her car. She paused before getting in. "You're not the same man who sat stunned in that kitchen," she said. "I hope not." "You're better now," she smiled. "Because you let it break you. And then you rebuilt." I watched her drive away with a calm I didn't recognize, because it wasn't built on survival anymore. It was built on choice. And I was finally choosing myself. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Tuesday. No courtroom. No theatrics. Just digital signatures and an automated email confirming the case was closed. It was done. I stepped outside with a cup of black coffee, let the rain hit my face, and just stood there. It wasn't about victory. It was about release. That night, I sat down with Marigold again. This time not in an office or under fluorescent lights, but at a quiet restaurant overlooking the harbor. The storm had passed, both inside and out. "Do you regret anything?" she asked gently over dinner. I thought about it. "I regret not waking up sooner," I said. "But I don't regret walking away." She nodded. "You taught me something," I added. "That strength doesn't always look like a counterpunch. Sometimes, it's the quiet man who stays calm while the world tries to tear him down. The one who keeps his dignity intact." She reached for my hand. "And the one who learns to let go." We left that restaurant not as broken people finding comfort, but as whole people choosing each other. Months later, I started mentoring men who were going through divorces. I didn't offer legal advice. That was Quentin's lane. I offered perspective. And here's what I told them. You can't control betrayal, but you can control your response. Let pain sharpen you, not shatter you. And when they expect you to crumble, stand up taller. Don't burn your past. Learn from it. Then walk forward and build a future so solid, they can't even reach it. Isidora faded from my life. A ghost in a story I no longer reread. Silas? He moved out of state. We never spoke again. But Marigold and I, we grew into something rooted in respect. Not built from the ruins, but planted in the soil we cleared together. Moral of the story? Betrayal might break your heart, but it doesn't have to break you. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming untouchable,